Have you ever watched a train wreck in slow motion? Well, if you tuned into the Indiana Fever's game against the Dallas Wings on August 12th, you witnessed something even worse. A 21-3 run at home against a team that's 9-22, and before you click away thinking this is just another loss, stick around because what I'm about to reveal about Stephanie White's coaching might shock even the most die-hard Fever fans. The evidence is mounting, and after what just happened, the calls for her job are getting louder than ever. Picture this. You're sitting at home, watching your team with a comfortable lead, and suddenly everything falls apart. Not just a little stumble, but a complete and total collapse that has fans questioning everything about this coaching staff. The Dallas Wings, a team that's been struggling all season long, just walked into Gainbridge Fieldhouse and embarrassed the Indiana Fever in a way that nobody saw coming. This wasn't supposed to happen. Not to a team with playoff aspirations, not to a team that's supposed to be building something special. But here's where it gets really interesting. This disaster didn't happen in a vacuum. We're talking about a pattern that's been developing all season long, and the numbers don't lie. 17 turnovers leading to 27 points for Dallas. Think about that for a second. 27 points gifted to a team that can barely score on their own. And the worst part? This keeps happening over and over again under Stephanie White's watch. Let me paint you the full picture of what went down on that Tuesday night in Indianapolis. The Fever were cruising along, looking like they might actually pull off a decent performance without Caitlin Clark, who's been dealing with that nagging groin injury. Kelsey Mitchell was doing everything she could, dropping 24 points and keeping the team afloat. Aliyah Boston was battling down low with 14 points and 5 rebounds. Sophie Cunningham was hitting her shots, going 5 for 10 from the field and 2 for 4 from deep. Everything seemed manageable. Then came that third quarter. Oh, that dreaded third quarter that's become Stephanie White's kryptonite. The Wings went on an absolute tear, and the Fever looked like they'd never played basketball before. Lee Ueru, who nobody outside of Dallas even talks about, absolutely dominated Aliyah Boston. We're talking about 20 points off the bench from a player who averages less than half of that. It was embarrassing to watch, and the home crowd could feel the energy completely shift. But wait. It gets worse. Remember Chloe Bibby, the player the Fever specifically brought in to stretch the floor and provide shooting? Well, guess what happened when she got hot? That's right, Stephanie White pulled her out of the game. 11 points in 12 minutes, 3 for 3 from beyond the arc, providing exactly what the team needed, and White yanks her. Fans in the arena were screaming at their TVs, social media was going absolutely crazy, and yet White stuck to her mysterious rotation that nobody can figure out. Speaking of rotations, let's talk about what happened with just 1.7 seconds left in the game. The Fever had a chance to set up a play, maybe steal this game they had no business being in after that collapse. What does Stephanie White do? She waits until there's literally no time left to call a timeout. 1.7 seconds. You can't even get a decent shot off with that little time. Any coach worth their salt calls that timeout with at least 4 or 5 seconds left to actually draw up something meaningful. The officiating was terrible too, and even Sophie Cunningham couldn't keep her cool. There was a play where Paige Buchers absolutely mugged Sophie, no call, and you could see Sophie looking at the replay on the Jumbotron yelling words that definitely can't be repeated on a monetized channel. She's already been fined twice this season for calling out the refs, $500 the first time, then $1,500 the second time. At this point, she might as well start a GoFundMe for her referee criticism fund because she's not stopping anytime soon. And here's something that nobody's really talking about. Stephanie White keeps disappearing. She's already missed multiple games this season for personal reasons, leaving assistant coach Austin Kelly to step in. Look, everyone has personal issues, and family comes first. Absolutely. But when you're coaching a team with championship aspirations, when you have one of the most exciting young cores in the league, there's an expectation of consistency and presence. The players need stability, and right now, they're not getting it. Let's dive deeper into White's actual coaching philosophy, or lack thereof. She came in talking a big game about modernizing the offense, about playing to the strengths of this roster. But what are we seeing on the court? Slow, predictable sets that any decent defensive team can figure out within 5 minutes. The Fever are playing like it's still 2010, while the rest of the league has evolved. Where's the pace? Where's the space? Where's the creative offensive system that maximizes the talent on this roster? The comparison to her time at Vanderbilt is becoming impossible to ignore. 46-83 overall record, 13-55 in conference play. Her best players transferred out. The program was in shambles when she left. And now we're seeing similar patterns in Indiana. Players looking confused on the court, questionable substitution patterns, and a complete inability to make in-game adjustments when things start going south. What makes this even more frustrating is that the Fever actually have talent. When healthy, this roster can compete with anyone. We've seen flashes of brilliance, games where everything clicks and they look like a legitimate threat. But those games are becoming fewer and farther between, and the inconsistency falls directly on the coaching staff. Good teams don't give up 21-3 runs at home to bad teams. Period. The fan reaction has been swift and brutal. Social media is flooded with calls for White's job. People who were excited about her hire are now questioning everything. The honeymoon period is officially over, and reality is setting in. This isn't the coach who's going to take the Fever to the next level. The evidence is mounting with every embarrassing loss, every questionable rotation decision, every game where the team looks completely unprepared. And let's address the elephant in the room. The blessing in disguise comment about Caitlin Clark's injury. Who says that? Your franchise player, the person who's brought more attention to your team than anyone in decades, gets hurt, and you call it a blessing? Sure, she tried to spin it as the team learning to play without Clark, but come on, that's not what you say publicly. That's not how you handle that situation. It shows a complete lack of awareness about the dynamics of your team and your fan base. The reality is that Stephanie White is in over her head. The WNBA has evolved since her last successful stint, and she hasn't evolved with it. Her stubborn adherence to outdated philosophies, her inability to manage personalities, and her questionable decision-making in crucial moments are all red flags that can't be ignored anymore. The Fever front office has a decision to make, and they need to make it soon. What's particularly concerning is the impact this is having on player development. Young players need consistency, they need clear roles, and they need a coach who puts them in positions to succeed. Instead, we're seeing players yanked in and out of games seemingly at random, confidence being destroyed, and growth being stunted. This isn't just about wins and losses this season, it's about the long-term development of this roster. The defensive schemes are another disaster worth discussing. The Fever are consistently getting torched by teams they should be shutting down. There's no coherent defensive identity, no consistent effort, and no accountability when breakdowns happen. Watch any fourth quarter collapse this team has had, and you'll see the same things. Poor communication, lazy rotations, and a complete lack of fundamental defensive principles. Even the players are starting to show their frustration, though they're being professional about it publicly. Body language doesn't lie, and you can see it in their faces during timeouts, the way they react to substitutions, the lack of energy when things start going wrong. This is a team that's losing faith in their coach, and once that happens, it's almost impossible to get it back. The comparison to what other teams are doing makes this even worse. Look at teams that have made coaching changes and immediately improved. Look at the systems being run by innovative coaches around the league. The Fever are being left behind, and every game they stick with this current situation is another game wasted in the prime years of their core players. Here's what needs to happen, and it needs to happen now. The Fever front office needs to seriously evaluate whether Stephanie White is the right person for this job. Not based on her history with the franchise, not based on nostalgia, but based on what's actually happening on the court. The evidence is overwhelming that a change needs to be made. This team is too talented to be this inconsistent, too important to the league to be this poorly coached. The Dallas Wings game was more than just a loss. It was a crystallization of everything that's wrong with this coaching situation. From the terrible rotations to the inability to stop a run, from the questionable timeout usage to the complete defensive breakdown, it was a masterclass in how not to coach a basketball game. And the worst part, this isn't an isolated incident. This is who the Indiana Fever have become under Stephanie White. As we wrap this up, remember this number, 21-3. That's not just a run, that's a complete systemic failure. That's a coaching staff that has no answers when adversity hits. That's a team that's being held back by the very person who's supposed to be leading them forward. The Indiana Fever deserve better, the fans deserve better, and most importantly, the players deserve better. The clock is ticking on Stephanie White's tenure in Indiana. Every game like this one against Dallas pushes the organization closer to making a change. The question isn't if anymore, it's when. And based on what we've seen, especially in this latest embarrassment, that when might be sooner than anyone expected. The Fever can't afford to waste this roster, can't afford to lose the momentum they've built, and certainly can't afford to keep accepting these kinds of performances. If you agree that changes need to be made, hit that like button and let me know in the comments what you think about Stephanie White's coaching. Should she stay or should she go? And don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell because we'll be covering every development in this story as it unfolds. The Indiana Fever's season might be hanging in the balance, and you won't want to miss what happens next.